Hi everyone, my name is Allison Grosz. I'm an attorney and a partner with Hemrick O'Malley, PLLC here in New York City. Today I want to talk about a recent update from November 3rd that USCIS and the Department of Homeland Security has issued related to U non-immigrant status. Specifically, U non-immigrant status is a temporary non-immigrant status for people who are in the United States who have been helpful or useful as part of a criminal investigation as the victims of certain qualifying crimes. A lot of people who are familiar with U non-immigrant status are aware that somebody who is granted U non-immigrant status can eventually apply for a green card and has a pathway to citizenship based on the U non-immigrant status. Now, traditionally, the U non-immigrant status is a very long process that takes many years in the immigration service system. This U non-immigrant status has traditionally also always applied to people who have been inspected and admitted through a visa status into the United States, another kind of visa status, has maybe overstayed their visa status or is still in status and becomes the victim of a crime. And this U non-immigrant status has also traditionally also applied to people who have entered the United States without inspection or parole. And what that means is they've illegally crossed a border without being admitted or inspected by any Customs and Border officer. So this U non-immigrant status has always granted a pathway to citizenship through a green card issuance. And to be eligible for a green card, a person must be granted the U non-immigrant status and of course maintain that status for a certain number of years before they are eligible to apply for adjustment of status, or a green card as we often refer to it. Now, what the Department of Homeland Security has announced as of November 3rd, 2025, is that a person who has entered the United States without inspection or parole, meaning somebody who came across the border illegally, is still, of course, eligible for the U non-immigrant status, but is no longer considered eligible for adjustment of status based on that U non-immigrant status alone. What this means is that a person who is granted the U status cannot just simply apply for a green card as they always have been able to before. In the past, the U non-immigrant status has always allowed a person who EWI'd or entered without inspection to apply for a green card because the U status was considered by the Department of Homeland Security to be an admission for purposes of being eligible for adjustment of status here inside of the United States. Well, with a recent decision that was just handed down on November 3rd, the Department of Homeland Security is clarifying that they no longer consider the granting of the U status to be an admission so that a person would be eligible for adjustment of status here inside of the United States. They're taking from a 2021 Supreme Court decision in a case called Sanchez versus Mayorkas that basically said that a person who's granted TPS would also not be considered to have that admission for eligibility for adjustment of status strictly just because of that temporary status. So in this present matter, where it applies to U non-immigrants, the Department of Homeland Security is taking the same position that a person with U status is not considered admitted for purposes of applying for a green card through adjustment of status here in the United States. But the Department of Homeland Security does remind people in this new policy guidance that was issued that a person is still eligible potentially for adjustment of status under something called 245M as in Mary. Now, this is something that you should work closely if you think that this applies to you with a qualified and licensed immigration professional. Lastly, it's important to also keep in mind that this policy guidance applies for people who are submitting their applications or having applications for adjustment of status adjudicated on or after the date of this announcement, which is November 3rd, 2025. We're happy to answer questions about this matter or about any other immigration matter. You can call us at 833-848-7838. You can also find us online at hemrick.law. And until next time, I look forward to talking to everyone soon.